This heart-wrenching story will change your life forever. Discover hope at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3 in the morning, and the town of Maplewood lay draped in a heavy silence, broken only by the rare rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. But in the small, dimly lit house on Elm Street, something stirred. A flicker of light danced through the window, casting long shadows that twisted like desperate hands clawing for escape. Inside, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, a trembling cup of coffee barely held between her fingers. She had been up all night, haunted by a sense of impending doom that wrapped around her like a thick fog. Then came the first strange noise, a low, ominous creak coming from the basement. It was the kind of sound that sent shivers racing up your spine, a reminder that something unnatural lurked just beneath the surface. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, hoping it was just the house settling. But deep down, she felt the pulse of fear clawing at her throat. Everyone said the old Maplewood house had a history, a dark truth buried in its foundation. Most dismissed it as myth, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the stories were rooted in something real. As she gathered the courage to confront the sound, a chill danced along her spine. The air felt thick, heavy with secrets. With each hesitant step toward the basement door, her heart pounded like a drum in her chest, a harsh reminder of her own vulnerability. The floorboards creaked under her weight, echoing in the stillness, as if they, too, were warning her to turn back. Sarah paused, just for a moment. She couldn't let fear dominate her. She had to know the truth, but then, she heard it again, a soft whisper that floated up through the air, wrapping around her like a smoke, cold yet oddly familiar. The words were unintelligible, but the tone carried an undeniable sadness, a plea that made her blood run cold. She pressed her ear against the door, her breath shallow, wondering if it was all in her mind, or if someone or something was truly down there, waiting. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, the whispers stopped, replaced by a deafening silence that seemed to hang in the air. Sarah felt a lump in her throat, anger and fear waged war within her. She couldn't hold back any longer. With a deep breath, she flung open the basement door, a shaft of dim light spilling into the darkness below. As she descended the creaky steps, a gust of wind whooshed past her, sending shivers down her spine once more. The shadows danced around her, blurring the line between reality and nightmare, and there was a soft glow coming from a corner of the room. As Sarah moved closer, she could see what looked like an old photo album sitting on the floor, illuminated by an eerie, otherworldly light. Her heart raced. What secrets lay within those pages? Secrets that could change everything she thought she knew about her home, about her family, about herself. With a trembling hand, she reached for the album, unsure of whether to embrace the curiosity or to run back into the safety of the night, but just as her fingers grazed the cover, she heard an unmistakable low growl rising from the darkness behind her. Her heart jumped into her throat, a desperate drumbeat echoing in her ears. Instinct kicked in, she jerked back, the photo album slipping from her grasp. It hit the ground with a muted thud, and the glow flickered, casting erratic shadows around the cramped basement. The growl morphed into a snarl, deep and menacing, its source obscured by thick shadows. Sarah's breath hitched. There was no doubt now she wasn't alone. With every ounce of courage still clinging to her, she turned her head slowly, searching for whatever lurked in that suffocating darkness. Her mind raced. Was this a figment of her sleepless night, or had she unleashed something that should have remained buried? Who's there? She managed to stammer, the words tumbling from her lips like stones thrown into a deep well. Silence responded, thick and oppressive, weighing heavily on her chest. Then came the unmistakable sound of something shifting, larger than a pet, sharper than a man. Anxiety clawed at her sanity, tangling with the dread that slithered through her veins. Before she could process her next move, the shadows began to unfurl, and with a sudden burst, a figure emerged. It was a dog, a massive, spectral hound with eyes that glowed like embers in the night. Its fur was both ink-black and misty white, flickering into view only to vanish again. Sarah gasped, stumbling back toward the door, her fingers fumbling for the light switch, desperate for anything to chase away the darkness and the haunting creature that prowled it, but the hound stepped forward, a low whine escaping its lips. It wasn't a noise of anger, it was hauntingly sad, like it understood the weight of loss that suffocated this house. In that instant, something within her softened. Was it possible this creature was a guardian, not a monster? "Why are you here?" she whispered, the echo of her words lost in the spiraling silence. The hound watched her, its gaze intense, as if searching her soul for answers. She felt a pull, a connection that defied logic. The mingling fear and sorrow wrapped around her, tightening like a vice. The glow from the photo album began to pulse rhythmically, as though responding to her distress. Gathering her nerve, now more intrigued than terrified, she took a tentative step forward. The shadows rippled, and the hound shifted slowly to the side, revealing more of the room. The air became thick with the scent of earth and damp wood, memories waking in the dust. As she approached the album again, a rush of cold swept through her, and a page flipped open all on its own. Faded photographs of a family long gone stared back at her, their expressions caught between joy and sorrow. In the corner of her eye, she caught the hound's gaze fixed on her, unblinking and heavy with the weight of 1,000 unspoken tales. "Are you protecting them?" she murmured, touching the edge of the page. The creature's eyes glimmered brightly at her words, and she felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility wash over her. In that fragile moment, the room hummed with energy, electricity sparking through the air, transforming the chilling atmosphere into something raw and oddly beautiful. But before Sarah could grasp the magnitude of what was unfolding, the basement door slammed shut behind her. She spun around, gasping as the growl returned, louder now, a warning rumble that vibrated through her bones. The hound's watchful eyes darkened, and a chill ran down her spine. It was no longer just a guardian. A force stirred, elemental and wild, unseen, waiting. What lay in the depths of Maplewood's history? What truth had she inadvertently unearthed? As reality blurred into something beyond comprehension, Sarah's breaths came fast, racing her heart. Something ancient and powerful was amassing, and she was at its center. But before she could give in to panic, uncertainty gripped her once again. What destiny awaited her in the shadows of the house, and what would she have to sacrifice to uncover the truth? Sarah's heart raced as the door thudded shut, the heavy thump echoing off the basement walls like the sound of a final verdict. The sharp growl that followed sent icy fingers creeping up her spine, forcing her to spin around. The hound stood before her, larger than any creature she had ever encountered, its glowing eyes focused intently on her, as if to convey a message only she was meant to understand. The air thickened with tension, pressing against her chest, and the memory of the photograph seeped into her mind. They were faces of a family fractured by time, lives entwined yet torn apart, shadows of emotion stretching between the lines. Were those the ones the hound guarded? Had they been cursed to remain in this realm, forever haunted by the echoes of their past? "Please, I need to know," she whispered, not realizing she had spoken aloud. The intensity of the hound's gaze deepened, and she felt a compulsion to reach out. "Tell me what happened to you." With a low rumble, the spectral figure shifted, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw sadness reflected in those fiery eyes. Then the shadows around them stirred violently, a tempest of despair and rage swirling in tandem. It was as if the very walls of the basement were alive, chanting muffled warnings she couldn't discern. Suddenly, from the depths of the chaos, a voice, a whisper of the past, coiled around her. "Seek the truth, you cannot hide." It was a command and a plea, resonating through her bones. "What truth?" she gasped, her voice trembling. "What do I have to do?" The hound stepped forward, the space between them crackling with energy. It lowered its massive head, a gesture that felt almost reverent. At that moment, Sarah noticed a tattered piece of parchment wedged within the pages of the photo album. Its edges were frayed, and strange symbols were etched into the surface, pulsating with a life of their own. As she reached for it, the room darkened further, and an unearthly howl echoed through the air, vibrating her very core. The hound shook its head defiantly, as if warning her to back away. But she couldn't pull her fingers away from the paper. It seemed to breathe with an urgency that demanded attention. "Stop!" she shouted, as she ripped the page free from the album. The world around her began to twist and warp as if reality itself had been severed. The shadows shrieked, swirling like a storm as visions flooded her mind, glimpses of that family, their tragic stories unraveling like a dark tapestry woven into the very fabric of this house. Then, in a blinding flash, she understood, the hound wasn't just a guardian, it was the essence of their pain, their lost hopes entwined with the very walls of Maplewood. These were souls needing release, trapped until their story was told. A surge of determination coursed through Sarah. She couldn't leave them bound by silence. "I'll help you," she cried out, the words flooding her with warmth and purpose. But the intense rumble returned, a warning scream rattling through her gut. The hound backed away, dissolving momentarily into darkness. In the next heartbeat, everything stopped. Silence fell, thick and suffocating, and she stood alone, hand cupping the haunting parchment while dread clawed at her heart. What danger awaited her if she pursued this truth? Fear whispered that she might unleash unspeakable horrors. With the weight of her decision heavy upon her, Sarah blinked and took a deep breath. The basement door creaked open, inviting her back to the world above. Light spilled in, illuminating the darkness that had consumed her moments before. But the question lingered, gnawing at her mind: who would she become if she embraced the darkness behind that door? And as she stepped toward the light, she realized her journey had only just begun. The light stung her eyes as she emerged from the basement, the warmth contrasting sharply with the chill that had settled in her bones. The air above felt different, almost sterile. Sarah caught her breath, the weight of the parchment still throbbing in her grasp. What had she just committed to? She glanced back at the basement door, which now stood ominously ajar, like a yawning mouth ready to swallow her whole. The hound's low growl echoed in her mind, and the image of its watchful eyes danced before her vision. The truth had called to her, but was she prepared for the path it opened? Every step she took was suffused with the pulse of uncertainty. Shadows skated along the walls, sleek and mocking, hinting at the darkness that swirled beneath her surface. Each face in the photographs flickered through her mind, a haunting reminder of the pain she'd seen. The distress she felt for them seemed to intertwine with her own torment. What if helping them cost her own sanity? She shook her head, trying to dispel the thought. She couldn't abandon them. Not now. She took another deep breath, focusing on the symbols etched into the parchment. If they held the key to unlocking the family's secrets, she needed to decipher them. Sarah retreated to her bedroom, a sanctuary of her past and a grounding force. As she unfolded the parchment, it felt alive, as if its surface pulsed with memories of sorrow and regret. Faint runes swirled against the faded paper, drawing her in with an otherworldly allure. She dug through the mess of her desk, scrambling for a flashlight to illuminate the intricate markings. As the beam hit the parchment, the symbols shimmered like stars in the night sky, casting ethereal light across her room. The pressure of the unknown tightened in her chest. Was this the truth buried deep within Maplewood's walls, alive and waiting to spill forth? With focused resolve, Sarah grabbed her journal, flipping through pages filled with sketches and notes. She began to document the symbols, each line a connection to the family's forgotten tale. Hours passed like minutes. Every so often, a strange noise would break her concentration: the creak of the floorboards, whispered laughter that ricocheted through the corridors, and the clicking of unseen claws against the walls. She glanced up, her heart racing, half expecting the hound to appear, a ghostly guardian urging her forward. Fatigued but undeterred, she finally settled on a series of patterns, a sequence that began to pulse against her fingertips. "What do you need me to do?" she whispered into the stillness. The only response was the silence of the room, thick as fog. Yet, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, a whisper of recognition from the shadows, but that night, a chilling dream swept over her. She saw the hound, now transformed into a wraith-like figure, standing in the basement. The family's faces materialized behind it, their mouths moving in a silent plea. The walls trembled with their unvoiced anguish, and she felt the despair wrap around her throat, squeezing tighter until she gasped awake that in the waking world, reality loomed like a thick fog. Sarah shivered as she glanced at the clock, 3 a.m., the dead of night. It felt as if the house itself held its breath, waiting for her next move. Suddenly, the phone rang, slicing through the silence like a knife. She jumped, heart pounding. No one called at this hour. With trembling hands, she reached for the phone, dread pooling in her stomach. "Hello?" She answered, her voice shaky. A static crackle filled the air, followed by a voice that chilled her to the bone. "You have to finish what you started." And then, the line went dead. Sarah's heart raced wildly. What had she stumbled upon? As shadows danced across her bedroom walls, she realized she was teetering on the edge of something vast and terrifying. Would she dare to uncover the truth, or would it engulf her entirely? The storm of fate loomed overhead, and she knew she was far from done. Panic surged through Sarah as the phone slipped from her grip, clattering onto the floor. The chill that wrapped around her was no longer just the night air, this was something deeper, something grasping at the edges of her sanity. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something sinister lurking just beyond her understanding. Her breath quickened as she crouched to pick up the phone, the silence in the room felt suffocating. She could still feel the ghostly voice echoing in her ears. "You have to finish what you started." What had she started? No answers hovered nearby, only the darkness that seemed to creep closer. Taking a steadying breath, Sarah forced herself to the desk, enacting a ritual of grounding. She needed clarity. The parchment lay untouched, pulsating with secrets that begged for light. With a steadier hand, she laid it out before her again, that eerie light calling her closer, demanding her attention. She focused on the symbols. Each intricate rune felt like it held the weight of 1,000 stories, 1,000 fates intertwined with her own. What if this led her to the family? Or worse, what if it exposed her to forces she couldn't comprehend? The spectral laughter from earlier haunted her mind like a refrain she'd never asked to hear. The shadows seemed to curl around the edges of her sanity, almost whispering promises of both hope and despair with each flicker of light. And then, without warning, her flashlight flickered a heartbeat, then died. The room plummeted into darkness. Stifling a scream, she scrambled for the drawer, fumbling for the spare batteries. Why now? As she rushed to replace them, the feeling of being watched overwhelmed her senses. A cold sweat beaded on her brow. Just when she felt ready to bolt, movement caught her eye. The basement door, barely ajar, creaked as if beckoning her to return. Was it the hound? The feeling of its eyes upon her? Sarah's heart raced, the thumping in her chest like a war drum. She couldn't be pulled back into that basement, not yet. Revenge, justice, those were things that called to her, but so did fear. She needed to summon her courage like a shield, to embrace whatever awaited her. In a moment of reckless abandon, she pushed the door further open, stepping over the threshold. Echoes ricocheted in the dark. A familiar growl rumbled low in her throat, almost protective. She couldn't see it, but she felt it. The hound was there, deep within the shadows, urging her on. "Show yourself," she shouted, defiance husking her voice. The air crackled with a strange energy. It chilled her, yet it beckoned like a lighthouse in the storm. "I'm not afraid," she claimed, though her voice wavered. Just then, the symbols on the parchment flickered in her mind, the patterns shifting and twisting. A hypothesis formed, a solution lay within. Maybe this wasn't a call for doom, but a promise of resolution. The family's pain needed to channel towards something greater. The room grew colder, sinister yet intoxicating. Her body prickled with anticipation. She pulled out her journal, feverishly trying to note the sequence in a rush, breathing quickly. This wasn't just about the family anymore, it was about her too. She was entwined in their tragedy. But the dream, what of the dream? What would invade her mind tonight while she slept again? Something tugged her gaze to the darkened corner. There, a flicker of golden eyes peered at her, intense and knowing. Fear is a choice. She whispered to herself, feeling outrage against the uncertainty. The hound stepped closer, its ghost-like form barely visible, becoming one with the shadows. Suddenly, the parchment burst into flames, a radiant glow radiating from the markings as if alive. The fire roared, consuming the edges of reality around her. She hesitated. What had she truly activated? As the smoke began to swirl, a voice called, firm and echoing, "Choices define us." And then everything went dark. Sarah gasped, her heart thundered violently at the encroaching silence. A new reality stretched out before her, cold and unforgiving. The whispers were back, but this time, they carried a weight, and it was pulsing. What awaited her beyond this darkness? Would she uncover the truth, or would it claim her in return? She held her breath, feeling the palpable edge of the unknown, knowing her choice was coming soon. Darkness enveloped Sarah, suffocating and heavy, and even her own breath sounded muted. She couldn't tell if her eyes were open or if she stared into an endless void. Panic clawed at her throat like an animal hungry for escape. Memories of warmth and comfort felt light years away. "Where are you?" she whispered, sounding small even to herself. The echo swallowed her words, leaving her isolated in a sea of fear. Then, as if the universe had heard her tremor of desperation, a weak light pierced the darkness. It flickered, wavering and hesitant, much like her resolve. A soft glow began to illuminate the cold basement walls, revealing rough stone and creeping shadows. Shapes flickered at the edges of her vision, dancing with the light, taunting her. Sarah took hesitant steps forward, the rough floor cold against her bare feet. "What is this place?" she murmured, clutching her journal close as if it were a lifeline. She remembered the last thing she had seen, the hound. The memory of its golden eyes flooded her with dread and an unexpected sense of purpose. "Show yourself," she called again, more firmly now, fueled by a flicker of tenacity she didn't quite believe she possessed. As if in response, the shadows seemed to constrict, and she was met with a low growl, deep and resonating. Tension prickled in her spine. She stood poised at the edge of the light, heart thumping loudly in her ears. The hound stepped into view, its form both terrifying and majestic. It approached slowly, eyes glowing bright, a beacon in the sweeping darkness. "It did not want to harm you," a voice broke through, a sound like gravel scraping against glass. The hound paused, its stature fierce yet strangely protective. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, voice trembling but steadying with each word. Another silhouette emerged from the shadows, a figure cloaked in darkness. As it stepped into the light, her breath caught in her throat. "You've come to finish what you started, Sarah," it stated flatly, the words dripping like honey, sickly sweet with threat. Her heart dropped. "Started? What do you mean?" The figure's smile was sharp, revealing teeth too white in the dimness. "The pain, the families, you've drawn it back. You hold the power to either unite their souls or what?" She interjected, fear turning to a fierce need to know. "Or unleash their vengeance," it hissed, and the air thickened with an unnameable energy, almost tangible like fog. In that split second, Sarah felt her thoughts racing. What had she really done? The hound surged forward, and the figure stepped back, surprising her with its sudden retreat into shadow. She felt the hound's presence as its warmth enveloped her, grounding her like anchor. She turned her gaze back to the parchment, now floating behind her, glowing faintly amidst swirling darkness. The markings pulsed softly, each beat resonating with her heartbeat. "Choices define us," the voice echoed again, but this time it sounded not as a warning but as an invitation. Sarah's heart thundered with a mix of conviction and fear. Choices felt weighty, didn't they? She had a moment to act, to change not just her fate but the fates of so many. "Show me," she demanded, stepping closer to the glow. As the parchment absorbed her voice, it responded, the symbols spinning faster, dust swirling around like a storm. The shadows bulged, cracking ever so slightly, revealing glimpses of memories and faces etched into the very fabric of the dark, and then, the room exploded in chaos. A cacophony of shouts, cries, and laughter surrounded her, merging into a symphony of haunting beauty. Faces flashed in her mind, families torn apart, heartache and hope woven together. What happened? She gasped, the surge of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. The figure re-emerged from the shadows, laughter mingling with the echoes. "You've awakened them, dear Sarah. The choice is no longer just yours." Suddenly, the hound let out a low, mournful cry, shaking her to her core. The energy shifted again, with the darkness converging upon them. "Are you ready to face what truly lies within?" The figure whispered, its voice now smooth and almost enticing. And as she braced herself against the pull of the abyss, a bone-chilling thought struck her. What if she was not one of the players, but merely a pawn in a game far older than herself? Would she seize the opportunity for resolution, or would she spiral deeper into the darkness, losing everything in the wake of her choices? With every second ticking away, the urgency gnawed at her. It didn't feel like a question anymore. It felt like a countdown. The shadows tightened around Sarah, each heartbeat echoing louder than the last. The cacophony of voices reverberated within her, merging her own fears with the anguish of those trapped in the blank void. She felt dizzy, disoriented, as if she were teetering on the edge of chaos. Before she could make sense of it all, the hound stepped closer, nuzzling her leg, grounding her in reality. Its eyes were focused and fierce, as if willing her to look beyond the swirling chaos. The whispers swelled, mixing despair with resolve, and Sarah shut her eyes tightly, pushing down the rising tide of panic. "Focus!" she shouted, her voice a gritty determination cutting through the noise. With the depths of her courage kindling inside her, Sarah opened her eyes and reached for the glowing parchment. The symbols spiraled faster, brighter, as if recognizing her newfound strength. "What do I do?" She glanced at the figure, but it melted back into the dark, leaving her alone with the weight of the choice looming over her like a guillotine. The air felt electric, prickling against her skin. "Tell me." A soft growl erupted from the hound, breaking the hold the shadows had over her. Its gaze burned with urgency, and oddly, she felt it urging her forward, toward the unknown path ahead. With a deep breath, she took a step toward the parchment. "Unite them," the voice slithered through her mind, a whisper full of dark promise. She felt the weight of the cosmos shift. "Only you can heal what has been broken." Her heart raced as she approached the radiant symbols, strange and familiar. "I can't heal ghosts," she murmured to herself, but doubt only fueled the intensity of her resolve. "But I can try." As she extended her hands, a chill rushed through her fingertips, crackling in the air like static. The instant she made contact with the parchment, images bombarded her senses. Faces of anguish, longing, and unforgiving sorrow filled her mind with a dazzling ferocity. An explosion of color and sound, blended memories fading in and out, flickering moments caught between despair and hope. She could see them: lost children, anguished parents. Memories of laughter, of love, fragile threads woven together. The weight of their suffering settled into her bones, yet something deeper stirred within her, a strange kinship with these souls. "No." The figure's voice echoed, slicing through her connection. "You must think of yourself, not them." "Who are you?" she shouted, eyes blazing defiantly. "Are you here to help me or to crush me beneath your shadow?" The darkness writhed in response, but with every pulse of her heartbeat, she felt the hound at her side, anchoring her. "You're not in control of me," Sarah asserted. The light pressed closer as ghosts swirled around her, their whispers morphing from shrieks of despair to sounds of guidance, subtle and reassuring. "Set us free," a little girl's voice pleaded, her small hand reaching towards Sarah from the recesses of memory. "We've waited so long," and in that moment, clarity struck. Her choice was not just hers to make, it was an invitation to embrace her own fears, to acknowledge the hurt within, and transform it into something powerful. She was not a pawn, she was a bridge, a key to unlocking the chains that bound them all. With renewed determination, she squeezed her eyes shut, channeling their grief into a single thought. "I'm here," she breathed, "and I will not let your pain be in vain." The parchment exploded in a brilliant light, engulfing her completely. Sarah stumbled backward, feeling the raw energy coursing through her like fire. The darkness shattered, giving way to a cacophony of relieved sighs and whispers of gratitude that surged around her like waves, but as the brilliant light began to fade, lifting her heart with promises of salvation, the figure re-emerged, its eyes now cold and calculating. "You think this is over?" It sneered, its tone icy. "You have only just awakened the storm." Sarah's heart plummeted. The shadows had returned, thicker than before, pushing against her. She faced a choice as the darkness loomed hungrily. Would she be able to harness this newfound strength, or would the storm consume her whole? Behind her, the hound growled fiercely, transforming into something almost colossal. "Fight!" it urged, an echo of strength resonating between them, and just as doubt threatened to drown her, Sarah steeled herself. "No," she whispered defiantly, "this time, I choose to stand my ground." As the shadows surged forward, she realized the true battle had just begun between her will and the unrelenting depths of darkness waiting to reclaim what it thought was its own. In the depths of chaos, who would emerge victorious? The clash began almost instantly, a tempest of shadow erupting from the darkness that clawed at Sarah. She felt the weight of it pushing against her, smothering any flicker of hope that had ignited within her. But the hound stood firm, its massive form a bastion against the encroaching void, growling fiercely as if challenging the darkness to take its best shot. "Focus on the light," she urged herself, forcing her eyes away from the gnarled shapes that writhed in the corners of her vision. "You are the light." With a deep breath, Sarah willed the warmth that had surged through her veins moments before to coalesce in her fingertips. The parchment still glowed faintly behind her. She could tap into that energy, channel it, let it flow. "I can't just stand here," she shouted. The shadows recoiled momentarily, almost surprised. In that instant of hesitation, Sarah closed her eyes, envisioning the faces she had glimpsed in that chaotic cascade, the lost souls, the bound memories. She pictured their pain, their longing for freedom, and she felt a tightening in her chest. It was her pain too, hers to carry, hers to share. "Together," she cried out. "We're in this together." The moment she projected her voice into the chaos, she saw it, a shimmering thread of light running through the darkness, a path worn thin yet resolute. Almost instinctively, she followed it, her feet moving with newfound purpose. With every step, the shadows seemed to recoil, yet they lunged back at her with hunger, clawing at her clothes, whispering her doubts. "Why fight for their sorrow?" one hissed, clawing at her sanity. "They will forget you." "They have already forgotten." "No," she screamed, shaking her head fiercely. "They've lived in darkness far too long. I will not let them suffer alone." The hound barked, its voice a clarion call in the chill, and Sarah felt emboldened. Her heart pounded, each beat echoing like a war drum. She raised her hands, palms open, and summoned every ounce of light she could muster. "Light! Come forth!" Suddenly, bright tendrils erupted from her fingertips, warm and golden, pushing against the darkness. The shadows twisted in agony, shrieking their discontent as they receded. The light poured out, illuminating the space around her, casting the oppressive forms into bare outlines, mere figments of the fear they represented. Yet, as she pressed forward, a cruel laughter echoed around her, cold and unyielding. "You think you can command them? Control them? You are just as weak." Sarah hesitated, a seed of doubt sprouting within her. But the hound pressed closer, nudging her forward with its great snout. "Do not listen," it growled low, almost a whisper. "This is your fight. Believe. You are stronger than you know." With renewed vigor, she steadied her breath and visualized a horizon of hope. She could see it, a glimmer of hope far off, beyond the clutches of shadow. She imagined her own light blending with that of the lost souls, an ocean of brilliance ready to drown out despair. In a fierce surge of will, Sarah raised her arm high, taking the last step into the shimmering path she had forged. Together. She called again, pouring every shred of resolve into her cry. All of us. Accept the light. As she did, a blinding flash erupted around her, and for a moment, it felt like time stood still. The shadows shrieked in fervent rage, fighting against the tide of light. But would it be enough? A massive wave surged forward, swallowing the darkness whole. The cacophony rose to a deafening roar, the boundaries of her physical form slipping away. And then, silence. The light faded, revealing a transformed landscape, a battleground now serene. Yet in that stillness, Sarah's heart raced. While shadows ebbed away, a weighty presence loomed in the corners, whispering of the trials yet to come. What's next? She worried, looking to the hound, now a fierce yet tender guardian. In the ruins of the shadows, she could still feel a smoldering enmity, threatening to rise again. The darkness had retreated, but it wouldn't stay away for long. Prepare yourself, the hound urged. Softly, its eyes reflecting the weight of their journey ahead. You have opened a door, but what is waiting beyond it is far from welcoming. It's time to discover the full extent of your choice. A chill swept through Sarah as the echoes of what came next beckoned her forward. Sarah looked around, her breath catching in her throat. The stillness felt heavy, almost palpable. What had once been a battleground was now eerily quiet, bathed in the soft, golden light of her victory. Yet lurking in the distance, shadows danced like restless spirits, hints of the darkness that still lingered beyond the veil. The hound shifted, its powerful form casting a long shadow beneath the waning light. We have to move, it urged, its voice low and serious. They may retreat, but they do not forget. We must not linger if we hope to stay ahead of them. Sarah nodded, determination firing her spirit. She could feel the warmth in her fingertips, still crackling with residual energy from their battle. But as she pushed her foot forward, a shiver of doubt threaded through her. What if they come back stronger? She asked, a tremor in her voice. What if I can't hold the light against them next time? Every flicker of doubt can dim your light. The hound turned its vibrant eyes toward her. Remember, it's not just you. The others there with you. You carry their hopes, their dreams. Remember that. With a deep breath, Sarah straightened her stance. The hound's words echoed in her mind. It wasn't just her fight, it was for all the souls she'd glimpsed, those lost in despair. It was the essence of hope battling against obscurity. They navigated through the tranquil ruins, a desolate beauty scattering remnants of what once was. Crumbling structures lined the path, their faded colors whispering the stories of those who had endured. But something was shifting. She could feel it like a low rumble in her chest. Suddenly, the horizon rippled, distorting their surroundings like a mirage. A chilling gust swept through the air, and Sarah grabbed at her heart, steeling herself. What is that? She gasped, looking around wildly. An answer wasn't necessary. From that distortion emerged dark figures, silhouettes creeping toward them with a soundless grace, as if the shadows themselves birthed them anew. Sarah's pulse quickened. Stand firm. The hound barked, reveling in the challenge. This is their reaction to what you've done. You've shaken them, but they will not let you go easily. Sarah's fingers tingled, the energy responding to her fears, ready to be harnessed. Those figures twisted and turned, circling, weaving through the remnants of light Sarah had summoned. With each flicker, they whispered malicious promises, a cacophony of containment, of despair. Join us, one hissed, coiling closer. We offer a taste of what they have forgotten, the sweetness of solitude. No. I refuse. Sarah shouted, finding her voice against the storm. A swirling mass of shadow lunged, and she flung her hands outward. Light burst from her palms, bright against the darkness that enveloped her. It was a radiant shield, but its intensity waned. "Can you hold it?" The hound growled, eyes narrowed at the shapes pressing closer. "Concentrate. They thrive on your fear. They will break through if you falter." Panic clawed at her throat, each betrayal from the shadows echoing louder, chilling her resolve. "I want to let them in," she roared, doubling her efforts. The light intensified, golden tendrils spiraling out in wild arcs. Yet the shadows convulsed and retreated only to surge back, more tenacious than before. Just then, she saw at a flicker of darkness in the corner of her vision, a form more ominous than any had been so far. It lingered just beyond the light, a deep, consuming presence that spoke to Sarah's very core in a voice as smooth as silk and icy as despair. "Why, Sarah?" it crooned, eyes glistening like obsidian. "Why fight what you secretly crave? You know this world has forgotten you. Join me, and you can stand unchallenged. You can have all that has been lost." Sarah's heart quickened. The voice was familiar, reverberating with an underlying pain that ignited her fears. "Stop," she urged, as the shadows attempted to fold around her. "I will never surrender." But doubt wormed its way into her heart, and the shadows did not ease. They pressed harder, engulfing the world around her in a swirling tempest of whispers. What was left of her light began to flicker, wavering dangerously as the darkness leaned in close. "Are you truly ready to confront your past?" The deep voice echoed once more, feeding off her hesitation. And just like that, Sarah was left in a fight against not only the shadows but her own memories. What truths waited to be unveiled in the morass ahead? Sarah could feel the weight of her past bearing down on her, as if the shadows themselves were dredging up memories that had long been buried. The cool, oily figures twisted and turned, whispering sweet temptations that prickled at her consciousness. "You don't have to fight, Sarah," the deep voice crooned, its sound slinking like smoke through her thoughts. "You can let go. You don't have to feel this pain." "No," she shouted, her voice a force of defiance. "I will embrace it. I will not let you claim me." With those words, bright light flared from within her, fiery and alive. The golden tendrils reached outward, slashing through the suffocating shadows like swords, carving paths of hope amid despair, but the darkness retaliated, swirling around her, suffocating her light with its tenacious grip. Each roll of shadows whispered betrayals, promises of safety behind walls of solitude. "They left you. They forgot about you. Why fight for a world that would abandon you?" Images flashed in her mind, lonely nights filled with echoes of laughter that now felt hollow, faces of friends and family drifting out of reach. A lump formed in her throat, the familiar pang of loss threatening to consume her. For a moment, she felt the very fabric of her resolve weaken, dipping toward the shadows beckoning her to succumb, yet, from the depths of her memory, a flicker of warmth ignited. The hound's eyes filled her vision, bright and filled with fierce loyalty. "They need you, Sarah," it urged, its voice firm and grounding. "Fight for them, your light can change everything." Sarah found her footing, summoning the determination that had carried her through the darkness before. "You're right," she called out, raising her chin defiantly. "I may feel lost, but I will not be forgotten. I carry the light of memories, of hope." With a fierce surge, she unleashed a wave of brilliance, pouring herself into the radiant glow. The shadows recoiled, trembling before her unwavering spirit. She could feel their fleeting hold break as the light washed over her, illuminating not just her path, but the lost spirits woven into her very core. Suddenly, the abyss pulsed, and the leading shadow, a figure shrouded in darkness, drew close, face slowly becoming discernible. It was a mockery of herself, twisted and forlorn. "You would deny this power?" her dark twin hissed, eyes filled with envy. "You could have it all if you just let go. Freedom from sorrow, don't you crave it?" "No," Sarah cried, fists clenching. "I won't trade my pain for walls. I will live, I will love, I will embrace it all." Each word felt like a sword, cutting through perceived weakness. She mastered the light, twisting it around her, encasing the darkness that threatened to claim her. The shadow shrieked, the sound sending tremors through her bones, yet Sarah felt no fear now, only might. With a final cry, she invoked the memories of those lost, the laughter, the joy intertwined with sorrow. "You cannot claim me." Her voice rang out, imbued with the energy of every soul she carried. The shadows were brightening, retreating, dissipating at the overwhelming force of hope and love that surged from her. And in that moment of tidal energy, she caught vivid glimpses of every face she'd seen. Their gratefulness ignited her own bravery. Sarah knew what she had to do. "Let the light guide you home," she shouted, focusing all of her intent on her twin shadow. The light swelled until it erupted, a wave of glowing energy that bloomed outward, washing away the darkness. Sarah felt lifted, soaring toward a horizon filled with warmth and golden glow. When the blinding brilliance faded, she found herself in a serene landscape, a lush meadow kissed by sunlight. The weight of sorrow still lingered like a memory, but it felt different now, integrated but not consuming. And there, among the vibrant flowers, stood the hound, transformed into its full spectral form, magnificent and proud. "You have done well," it rumbled softly, majestic as it approached. "By facing your darkness, you've released their burdens and placed your own heart into the light." With trembling hands, Sarah reached out to the hound. Memories flickered, echoes of their trials wrapping around them, resonating with gratitude. "What comes next?" she asked, breathless with hope and trepidation. The hound's eyes gleamed with wisdom. "Your choice is not just for you. The path ahead will twist and turn, darkness can always rise again. But remember, you are not alone. You have a light to guide you." A sense of peace washed over Sarah, a realization that her fight was not over, but it was a fight she could embrace. The shadows would always loom, but she had the strength to navigate through unyielding darkness, carrying both her pains and hopes. As she stepped forward into a future uncharted, Sarah felt liberated, more alive than she had ever been. The darkness may resume its pursuit, but she had forged the light. She would contain it, wield it like a shield, and so, she set out, ready to cast her light onto every corner of the darkness awaiting her, a beacon illuminating the way for all those still trapped in shadows, promising hope, healing, and a home no longer lost to sorrow. As she walked into her new chapter, the echoes of past laughter intertwined with her heartbeat. This was her journey, her legacy, a story that would forever breathe life into the echoes of Maplewood. Don't forget to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to spread the light. Don't wait even one more second to share.